how can insurers successfully acquire new business in an industry built on personal relationships when we're restricted to electronic interactions?
I would go back to the comment I made about the internal issue, right? So we have this virtual concept, and for those of us who have a built-in network within our organizations, this virtual, I think, works quite well. But if you don't know someone, it doesn't work as well. And I'd say the same thing applies on the relationship side. I have a network, right? I have a personal network outside my company, which is my clients, my producers, my partners, whatever. And no different than picking up the phone to call them. You can have a virtual conversation with them any day of the week, for the most part. And usually they're more available than they were before. But it is a different, I believe it is different for the new development, for new relationships to be born. And that's why I think when we think about a new normal, you have to factor that in.
I think for someone who's just coming up in the industry to show up at one of the big conferences and to just start working that is fairly daunting.
Very difficult.
I think that's where these new mechanisms that are more social are going to have to come into play, right? So if you're 25 years old and you need to build a network that Tony has over the next little while, you're going to need to engage in some element of video cold calling or warm calling or doing some bonding, both this way and in person. And so I'm assuming at some point we'll go back to meeting people and that will be a thing. But if you've already greased the skids of progress with the video calls and the regular phone calls, I think you're going to be a lot better off. But it's going to take more work, and it's going to require a certain kind of a zip from those people. But I think those are the same kind of things, right? It's the emergency mode we're in now, or whatever the 50-50 mode is. Those will start to develop, and while we have that need, the producers and the clients and everybody else is going to be in a similar position, trying to get their young people connected with our young people. And while I agree there'll be the stutter step, as some things come back online and some don't. But I think those social structures are going to be the ones that we're going to have to work on. And to Tony's point earlier, I don't think it goes back to the old way necessarily. And so I think embracing, what could that look like? How do we do that? It's going to be more work. It's going to be more thinking. Those people who are going through that are going to have to, learn how to do it, in the new world order. But I think that is probably all good, and you might be able to do that better than trolling a conference with 10,000 people in one room, right?
One of the interesting things that is to be seen is how the generational stuff plays out there. I mean, Marc, you alluded to your young people. I mean, I think all of us are learning the skill of, hey, guess what, this works. Whereas obviously there's a generation that's coming up and coming through, and it's one of the challenges in the industry, right? Attracting young people and thinking that insurance and reinsurance is a good place to be. Slightly off at a tangent there, but at the end of the day, are those the sort of people that in that 50-50 world are going to be much more comfortable saying, hey, I have got collaborative solutions, I have got ways of doing this that mean I can possibly transact business in a way that wasn't done traditionally. I mean, in our experience over the last 3 months, if you'd have said to me, can you get introduced to a prospect, sell a fairly significant ticket platform without actually physically being in a room with someone and sharing, the bonding that comes with that, I would have absolutely have said no. Well, we've done it.
When I started in the business, I remember there was somebody working at another company, and I said, well, what does that guy do? And somebody said, well, he's a good man with a knife and fork. And he was the guy who went out there, had lunch, had dinner, and he came back, and submissions came in, and other people really worked on them. I think that type of person and that type of role has dramatically diminished during my period in the insurance industry. That type of job doesn't quite exist so much, but there's still a value placed on that social interaction. I think Marc's shaking his head. Perhaps he knows some folks who would fit into that category. But as we go forward, what we're going to see, I think, is that those skills are going to have to be augmented or replaced with somebody who's going to get on a video conference with somebody and say, I can do something for you.